All right. Welcome to another episode of The Last Zebra. I'm your host, Dr. Ugo Ezema, and I have the immeasurable pleasure of having a tremendous mentor of mine, someone I look up to greatly, Dr. Jerry Zifodya. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, man. And thanks for pronouncing the name right as well.
Of course.
Yeah, most people are Dr. Z, but Dr. Zifodya. Yeah, it's nice to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Thank you so much. I know it's a little late in the evening, so I know you had to step away from the family to be here, so I really appreciate you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Glad to make it. Glad we could finally make it happen.
Absolutely. So, like we've had this conversation before. Essentially, I try to get the stories behind the people that work in medicine. I think you have one of the most tremendous, one of the most inspirational, I would even say. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What you got?
Yeah, man. So I'm from Zimbabwe, born and bred, grew up in Harare. Moved to the States. So I grew up in Zimbabwe. I was there for high school. Moved to America for uni, for college. So growing up, I thought I was smart. I thought I was good at books. So when I applied, I was like, I'm going to America. I applied to Harvard, to Yale, to the big unis. Rejection. For college.
That was humbling.
Yeah, man. It was very humbling because I remember I wrote my personal statement on word processor. Yes, this was it wasn't even Microsoft Word. It was word processor on Windows 95 or whatever the case may be. And no one checked it. I just put it in. I was like, my grades speak for themselves.
Oh my God. Oh man.
Yeah, man. So anyway, I didn't get into the big Ivy League schools, but got a scholarship, went to a small liberal arts school in Jackson, Mississippi called Belhaven College, now Belhaven University. From there, I ended up met my best friends in life and my wife there. Then from there, went to Tulane University for med school, which is where I work now. But I left. I went to Nashville, to Vanderbilt for residency, University of Washington, Seattle, and then lived in Kenya for a year. I have a big passion for global health, so I wanted to go spend a year back home in the motherland. Zim didn't work out, but Kenya was wonderful. And then, started a job at Tulane.
That's it. That's nice. What was the transition from Zim to Jack? Did you say Jackson?
Jackson, Mississippi.
Wow. What was that transition like?
Jacktown.
They say Jacktown?
Yeah, it is Jacktown.
Oh my God.
No, so it was interesting, right? Because people are like, you're going to America. You're going to have culture shock. America's, it's so there. It's big. It's America.
Jackson.
Oh, man. So I grew up, I had nothing against Jackson, but I grew up in a very big city in the capital. Harare is a big, thriving city. Mm-hmm. Jackson was small, man. Compared to Zim, compared to what I had grown up with, I struggled with it a little bit. But the transition was reverse culture shock. I went from big city to Jacktown.
It's not what people usually think about when you say you're leaving Zimbabwe, I imagine. Well, in this context, it's easy to say Africa. Whenever people say Africa, it's not what people are expecting when you say I'm going from Africa to America. But really, what you're saying, you're going from a big city to a small town.
Exactly. Yeah. People are like, Zimbabwe. This guy must have come from the village. No, man.
You guys are in the village.
No, I came from a very, very big city. I don't even remember the stats on numbers now,
right.
but it's huge. It's thriving, and then to a very, very small town. Not much to do there, so it was an interesting experience. I'm glad I met my wife. I met my friends, but
there are a lot of positives.
Interesting. Yeah.
You mentioned the big universities, and what's the name?
Belhaven.
Belhaven. I don't even think I ever heard of that place. Belhaven
most people haven't.
Now university.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure means it's a sign of progress if you're going from college to university.
I wonder what your viewership will be on this. No, man. So when I went to high school, my high school was called a college, and in the British education system, high schools are colleges, right?
Yeah. I went to Monroe College in Jamaica.
Exactly. So they had a problem with, they felt like if they wanted to attract more international students, if they were being called a college, people would think, oh, this is like a high school. So they changed, this is the rumor as to why they changed their name to university from college. It didn't grow any, it just changed to a university.
Semantics.
It's a university now.
Wait,
not
were there
college.
a lot of international folks there? Enough for them to say, let's change from college to university?
They were trying to grow their international numbers. Most of us were, well, there's a bunch of guys on the soccer team. Then a few of us on academics. It wasn't a big international community.
Right.
Yeah. So they were trying to attract more people.
I wonder if they actually got more people because of that name change. That'd be interesting to look at.
I don't know, man. Someday I'll go back to Jacktown and find out.
So, yeah. When's the last time you went? Since you graduated.
Man, I hope your viewership. No offense to Jackson, Mississippi.
You're not going back?
I told my friends if I had to drive through Mississippi to go somewhere, I'll drive around.
You're not going to Mississippi. Oh, Lord.
No, man. No, my wife's from Mississippi. I love it. No, I lied to my friends. I actually ended up going back a year ago because one of my close friends, as I was saying, my closest friends are from there. He was coaching a tournament and he was staying by the school. So he coaxed me into going back. That was the first time in 12 years or something like that.
Did you do pre-med there?
I did my pre-med there, yeah.
How do you feel about pre-med? I have mixed feelings. Actually, no, I have very strong feelings about pre-med that if you're not sure that you want to go to medical school, it is a waste of a degree.
Yeah.
And I found that out the hard way because for a long time I felt like I was pressured into medical school by my parents.
Yeah.
And so I did pre-med respectfully to my parents. Thank you very much. I am a doctor now.
It worked out.
It worked out. And I'm very, very happy. But after undergrad, I essentially was like, no, I'm not going to do this. I want to find my own thing. So I took a year off. I worked in the hospital. I eventually found my way back.
Yeah.
But in that year, when I was trying to find a job, no one wanted me. Either I was overqualified or I was underqualified.
Yeah.
So the pre-med degree is a waste of a degree, it felt like at the time. And now that I, when I have, students asking me, what's your recommendation? I would say, try do something in college, meet your requirements that you can go to medical school, but do something else in college that gives you a little bit more roundedness, right? Because if for whatever reason that doesn't work out, you just wasted 4 years of academic time.
I agree because you're pre-something when you do pre-med.
Yes.
You're either going to end up going to pharmacy school, medical school, maybe do a PhD, otherwise be like a junior scientist somewhere.
Right.
You just and I don't know, section things, and it's very difficult to use that degree, and it's not very practical.
Right.
I did biology, but then I also had like math and chemistry on the side because I loved the science. I'm a numbers guy, so I liked the numbers to it. Biology was just by virtue of I needed it to go to med school. I wish I had known. I actually didn't need to be a biology major. I wish I would have actually, in retrospect, I loved math, would have majored in math. And that's a degree you can use, right?
Right.
Or even engineering or something like that.
Very practical.
Yeah, very practical. Some of the people I went to school with, some of the most brilliant people I went to med school with, had only done the bare minimum pre-med requirements and had done engineering, for instance.
100%. So that's the other cool thing I learned about in medical school is the diversity of background in terms of education.
Yeah.
And there's no added bonus to doing all the other stuff that you do in pre-med. Like there's so many classes I did in pre-med that in medical school had no bearing in how well I did. The niceties of being exposed to anatomy and physiology previous was good, but some of those deeper ones, I think I did virology at one point.
Yeah. It's absolutely not worth it. Right. So you asked me as you were starting, like, how do I feel about pre-med? It was a bit of a wasted 4 years, to be honest with you. I knew I wanted to go to medical school. Like back home, you go directly from high school.
Right.
I had wanted to go in. I was going to go into med school, and that was my pathway. Did I need to spend 4 years waiting until I started medical school
Right.
and redoing really in reality a lot of the classes I had done in high school anyway. So,
Right.
it was not. I mean, I'm glad for the college experience. The American college experience it was fun times. It's unique. I got into college football. We would go and watch our soccer team, which was really good at the time. Like it was a fun experience. It was a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
Played a lot of Mario Kart. It was good times.
Yeah,
It was America.
Yeah.
I think it was 4 years that I could have been doing something else.
Yeah. And certainly where the academia aspect of it is concerned, I do wish I did a different degree.
Yeah.
I think I'll be I feel like, especially, I think college is a time that you should really hone in on finding out who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of it is in the pre-degrees, the pre-meds, the pre-whatever. So much of it gets bogged down in those like fine details when in reality, in real world, none of that really matters. None of those really matter.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think is when you get out of college, if you had to work, whatever degree you have should be able to get you a job.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. It is 4 years. You you spend a lot of time, a lot of studying.
Yeah.
You should be able to use it and not have a useless degree.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
what would you have done? What would your degree have been?
That's a good question. I think I would lean probably into the arts. I started doing a little bit of math. So I started leaning a little bit into calculus. So I did like advanced calculus.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed it because my sister at one point wanted to be an Arcturian. I hope I'm saying that right.
Actuarial scientist.
Actuarial scientist. And I was so fascinated by it. But I didn't think that would be an option for me, especially because I was pre-med.
Yeah.
So I started taking these math classes, calculus, advanced calculus 1, 2, 3, and I was really enjoying it. There was a point where it became that I wasn't focused on it to the degree that it required, because I was a lot more focused on pre-med, and so it became more of a hindrance and frustration. But I felt like if I could really sit down and do it, I knew I could get it down. But the classes that really stuck to me were a lot of history, a lot of music, a lot of art, and philosophy.
Interesting.
So I really enjoyed those classes. In terms of functionality, leaving medical school, leaving undergrad, if I was to do it all over again, I'd probably do nursing school.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah, I would do nursing with a minor in one of those things I was just talking about.
Yeah.
Something that, gives me a little, like I'm saying, well-roundedness. I wish, and this might be a lazy way of saying this, but I wish I learned an instrument in college.
Yeah.
Either formally. And I think that in college, because you're kind of forced, the time is there. I wish I learned an instrument, and I wish I learned another language.
Yeah.
And I think college, for anyone, it's 4 years. You should be able to walk out of college knowing an instrument, learning an instrument, and learn a language. And that's what I would have done: nursing, a new instrument, and a new language.
That's ambitious. Huh.
That's what I would have
Interesting. Done. Yeah. I would have, playing an instrument would have been fun. I tell people this. I started playing violin once upon a time. I was in grade 4 back home. And my parents didn't value it.
Of course.
They were like,
my parents didn't
how did you do it in math? How did you do it in English? Who cares about this instrument that they're sending you home with? I know. So a guy that I started with, right? He ended up playing like concert violin. Like he's brilliant, and he and I played Baba Black Sheep together.
That's crazy.
So that's one of my regrets. Like, but growing up in Zim and like growing up in my family, a more conservative family, I love my parents. I'm very thankful. It worked out.
Yeah, it worked out.
That just wasn't valued. This whole playing violin thing. So I would skip lessons, and like I stopped.
Right.
My school was wonderful. They would give you the violin to take home with you and practice.
That's amazing.
But then no one would push me to practice at home. But if I wasn't doing my math homework,
that could be contentious.
Yeah. So
there's definitely different priorities.
Yeah, very much. But an instrument would have been fun. Although I don't know if I'd look weird with the violin. Now I'm a big guy, but I also played marimba for a while, but really never learned to read music. So you were talking about you gravitated towards the arts and history and everything. My mind doesn't work that way. Like interesting. I'll do like trivia with friends and these history facts. Unless if it's what was the score in this one football game or whatever. The history facts don't stick with me, but if it's music, if someone plays like a line of something or
you got it.
I've got it. It's easy. Like music, I think in music.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you were saying, you would if people think differently and their minds work differently. So it's fascinating for me that yours is with history.
Yeah. When you say you think in music, what does that mean?
It's how do I put this? Like it's odd. My wife thinks it's really funny, and the kids love it. Any situation that happens in life, or some like really small things, I can identify what's going on with a song. Like someone, slips. I'm slipping. I'm falling. I can't get up.
Wow.
It just my mind goes to like some random lyric or some song, and I don't know if it's thinking in music per se, but I don't know. My mind holds on to music and lyrics and beats. So like you can play like a few, beats off of a song and my mind jogs to this is what this song is.
That's pretty cool.
So I enjoy that. I wish it was more usable in medicine, but
I was just about to ask you, in what way could you maybe in learning medicine, is there a way that helped you?
In learning medicine?
Yeah.
So I then, because of that, focus on music and focus on lyrics a lot. So I either had to, when I was studying, so I guess this is for everyone, but when I was studying, had to listen to songs that I knew really, really well. And therefore I'm not focusing and remembering them, or something that's just completely mindless and doesn't really have lyrics, because otherwise I'm gravitating towards the music and away from things. How do I use it on medicine though? We have a game on my rounds with my fellows and my residents. Call it the lyric game. Came up with it. Trademark. Copyright. It's when I'm on rounds, I'll give them a few lines, whatever, because I listen to just very eclectic music. Yeah. I'll give them a few lines from a song, and then they have to guess it. If they guess it, whoever guesses it, I'll get lunch or boba tea or whatever the flavor is for the day. So that's what I use it for now, which is not very practical, but it's fun.
What's the most random one that? Give me a line. What's the most random one that you gave? I'm gonna try to see if I can get this, because I love music too.
All right. Let me see. Which one did they fail at? No. So a lot of the songs you may know. So this will be a tough one, because we grew up with the same musical tastes. Damn. You put me on the spot. Okay. All right. I'm trying to think of an eclectic song that
might be. I'm curious.
All right. I want you to tell me who the band is that played this.
Okay.
And this should be easy, but they struggled. I've got my toes in the water, ass in the sand, and then I don't remember the rest of the lyrics. But life is good today. Life is good today.
Life is good today. I know that. I don't know it. I don't know it. Who is it?
It's Zach Brown Band. Yeah. So, yeah.
I like my chicken fried.
Yes. So I did chicken fried for them also.
And they didn't get it?
Yep.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Cool. Cold beer on a Friday night. But that's not that song, though.
No, it's Life is Good Today.
Life is Good Today.
Well, actually, what's the name of the song? That's a good question. But it's Zach, I've got my toes in the water.
Yes. I do know that.
Yeah.
I think that those are their two big songs.
They are.
Chicken fried and Life is Good Today.
Oh, yeah. And then there's,
that's that Mississippi roots right there.
No,
that's where that's coming from.
It's Louisiana. It's all the guys that I went to med school with in Louisiana. Actually, those guys listen to some country music.
I love me some Zach Brown.
I did not listen to that much country. I don't like country music. I didn't listen to a lot until I came here.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. But there's the Oh man, stick 'em on a chicken. Stick 'em on a chicken.
I don't know
Stick
that
'em
one.
on chicken and watch them feathers fly. My dog Pete's. Oh,
Wait,
man.
who's that?
I'm pretty sure it's the same band. I think it's them.
Zach Brown?
Yeah.
I know those two songs. I don't know that one.
Sick 'em on a chicken. I'll have to double check. There you go.
Yeah.
Maybe I got myself with my own lyric game.
I love
But
it.
Sick 'em on the chicken is the name of the song. It's a good song.
I like country music. My dad growing up would always have like, cause we had cassettes.
Yeah.
He would play in Nigeria. I'm talking like in Nigeria, in Nsukka, Nigeria.
Yeah.
My dad had cassette tapes of country musicians, right? And that's what we would listen to.
Yeah.
We'd listen to country music. And then when we got older, my dad did some advanced education. I'm pretty sure he was doing his master's and his PhD in Houston. And whenever we'd visit, the radio station was stuck on country. So ironically, I don't know if it's ironic or not, but when I listen to country, when I think of country, it reminds me of my dad.
Interesting.
So that's my connection to it. So I love country music. I love country music.
Man, wow, interesting. I hate it. But there's some really good songs out there.
Oh,
what did you listen to in Niger? Because when we grew up, it was like Dolly Parton and like the old guy with the white beard, whatever his name was.
So Dolly Parton for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And I might be butchering the names now. What's his name? He sang, wow. What's his name? And I have the songs all in my head. I'll have to remember it. But yeah, Dolly Parton.
There was some old guy. He had a big white beard.
Yeah. What's his name?
I can't help you there.
not
I'm not a
Nash.
country connoisseur.
It's not Nash. But I know exactly who I have his Kenny Rogers.
Kenny Rogers.
Kenny Rogers.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So did I? You gotta know when to hold them.
Yeah.
Know when to fold 'em.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's it. That's
Okay,
it.
all right.
So we had that. It's not country music, but like things like Brown Girl in the Ring, fra la 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 la. So we
I know that
had
one.
so many of these cassettes. What was it? Man. I think like a woman. Dun, 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 dun,
Ooh, I don't-
dun.
oh,
That's
okay,
Shania
okay.
Twain.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
That's
I know the
Shania-
beat. Yeah.
Shania Twain. I love country music.
Yeah,
Even
there
to
you go.
this day, like I still listen to like Chris Stapleton. He's really good.
Yeah, he's big.
He's really, really big. And my brother now lives in Nashville.
Yeah.
So, which is so funny because, and I have a really good friend of mine that lives in Austin. But whenever I visit Namdi, my brother,
Yeah.
and he's all about that country music right now. I'm pretty sure he has.
Don't see it.
I'm
No way,
telling you.
really.
I'm pretty sure he has cowboy boots and everything. I'm telling you. He's all
man.
about that country. And Namdi will, if you're driving the car with him, a country, he sometimes will send us like some songs like, guys, you have to listen to this. And we're listening to it straight. Normally I'm thinking he's about to send us some boozy, but nah. He's sending us some country music. Yeah.
Oh man, if you guys were to meet Nandi, you would be surprised about what he's telling me right now.
I'm telling you.
I'll have to have him school me on country
Bro,
one of these
He
days.
loves it. He
Yeah.
loves it. But yeah, I love country. I love it has really good substance. Of course, there's a lot of, jokes about country music. Everything is about trucks and stuff, but there's some substance in there.
There's a lot of stuff about trucks though.
There's a lot of trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Trucks.
I'm pretty sure everybody got
Yeah.
a truck in country music.
Yeah, there you go. Need to give myself an F350.
350. Oh yeah, driving down the Old Town Road with my F-150 or F-250.
Yeah.
Talking about your girl.
Who left
And don't
me?
forget your beers too.
Oh man,
You gotta talk about
not
the
Bud
beers.
Light though.
Oh yeah, Bud Light is in them.
Yeah, I don't know. Yingling Lager, America's oldest lager.
It is.
Yeah,
Isn't that so bizarre?
it really is. How is it Yingling?
How? It's distinctly by name alone. I need to look at the history of that beer.
I don't-
How is it? And they proudly say it's America's oldest lager. If I was a beer company, I would buy that like trademark.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you guys can't say this anymore.
You know what's funny is maybe they're lying. Have you ever looked it up? Maybe they're making this whole thing up.
I know everyone's
And
just
no
like,
one's ever fact checked it. We just all are like,
We just accepted
America's
it.
oldest lager.
sure.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. I'll have some.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I've never. I'll admit, even in the age of like smartphones, I've never sat down and Googled whether or not Yingling is truly
I need to
America's
confirm
oldest
this.
lager.
We need to confirm this. I'm gonna look it up.
No offense, Yingling. Maybe you're
Respectfully.
Yeah.
In case they want to sponsor us one day.
Yeah.
we like Yingling.
Yeah, Yingling. Great lager. Great lager.
America's oldest lager.
America's oldest lager.
America.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So, how did you decide to then be go into pre-med? Like, was it always something that you wanted to do?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I was sold you're the smart kid. You should go into medicine. Like growing up in Zim, right? If you were smart, you did accounting or you did medicine. Maybe law, but really accounting or medicine. Those were the two things. So I have a family full of accountants. So I was, when I was growing up, my mom told me, when you were born, the doctor told me this is going to be your doctor. And then there was a lot of pressure because I did well in the sciences. So it was always a lot of pressure to be to go into medicine.
Right.
Growing up back home, it's like one of the ways out. Like doctors did well when I was growing up. Unfortunately, things in Zim aren't like they used to be, but doctors did well. So I think being told that and having that pressure and then finding I actually did well in the subjects made me think, I'm going to go be a doctor.
Right.
So then for us, like back home, you take A-levels, which you're probably familiar with.
Absolutely.
And so at the age of 16, you have to decide pretty much which direction you're going in.
Right.
Because you only take 4 subjects for the last 2 years of high school. So at that age, I was like, well, I still do really well at sciences. I want to be a doctor. I want to do maths, biology, physics, and chemistry. So the foregone conclusion, I was going into the sciences.
Right.
A friend of mine smartly did math, bio, and accounts, I believe. He's still a doctor, but like he did accounts because he was like,
It might be useful.
it might be useful, and maybe I'll actually go into accounts. I did math, bio, physics, chem. I had been doing French up until a certain point, but I blacked out in an exam once and like the words just left me. And I was like, man, I don't ever want to be in this situation again.
Yeah.
Like equations make sense to me. These damn conjugations of verbs have just lost me. So anyway, all that to say, I gravitated towards towards sciences. So I decided by the time I was 16, I was going to go into med school. Actually applied, got into the University of Zimbabwe, UZ, got my ID. But Zim was going through some things economically, politically at the time, unfortunately. So my siblings had already left the country. So I followed suit and they were in England, my 3 sisters, my brother, my other brothers in San Fran, but got the scholarship. America was the dream, right?
Right.
When I was growing up. So always wanted to come here. So came here. And when I was asked, what's meet with you, they asked you if you needed an advisor so that they could help you with your subjects. They asked me which pathway. And I said, well, pre-med. And little did I know also, right? You're coming to America. They're telling you, if you want to do medicine, you need to do this, and that.
Right.
No one told me, go do an accounting degree and just take your prereqs. I didn't know.
Right.
I just did all the sciences, some of which was repetition.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, it was very much a decided thing. I came in, I was like, I'm going into medicine. And that was the pathway. So it's not a very exciting one. At some point, I wanted to be a professor of some sort, like just a mad scientist professor. Interestingly enough, because I work in a medical school, I'm an assistant professor. So
you're close.
So I'm close.
And you're growing the hair out.
And I'm growing the mad scientist hair out. It's graying very quickly.
It's coming. You're fulfilling your destiny.
Yeah. So professor and a doctor. That's a goal. That's the goal. Yeah.
And internal medicine, right?
Yeah.
So from medical school, how did you decide on internal medicine?
Man, you're asking good questions today. I'm telling you my life story. All right. So I played sports. I grew up, I played rugby. When I went to college, initially tried to play soccer because all the internationals played soccer, but I have 2 left feet. I was terrible. But they put me in at mid and I just would defend and hit people. Coach on campus, it was a small campus, my uni, my college. He was like, hey man, you're a big guy. You should come try out for football one of these days.
American football?
American football.
Oh, wow.
I took him up on it. I was like, why not? I'm big.
Why not?
And so for the last 3 years of college, I was a defensive lineman.
I did not know this.
Yeah, man. I played football. I say played. I very much practiced football and then sat on the bench. But, you know.
Well, you were on the team.
I was on the team.
That's pretty cool still.
I even got to travel more as a senior.
Yeah.
Usually they left us at home. We the JV players. But yeah, it was good. Like I understand the sport more because of it, and I love sport. I love college football. Sometimes, in fact, most of the time more than the NFL because it just means more at the college level.
Yeah.
So yeah, how did we get on this topic? I just lost my train of thought.
We were talking about how you chose internal medicine.
Oh, internal medicine.
Yeah.
Okay, man. I just took a tangent.
You said you love sports.
And I love sports.
Yeah.
So when I got to med school, the natural progression was I'm going to go be an orthopedic surgeon. And people were like, oh man, you're a big guy also. Like you just seem like you're going to be an orthopod, right?
Right.
And so I did all the pre-things for ortho. I did a sub-internship in ortho.
Really?
Yeah, I was going to go into ortho. And then I sat in a spine surgery for like 13 hours. And I was miserable, man. Like, I mean, more power to ortho. I there's a lot of parts of it that I love. But I was like, man, if I go train in this thing, I'll go sit in operating rooms holding open a tiny little hole in the back of someone's neck and stand there for 13 hours. No, I don't want to do this. So then I was like, well, I'm undifferentiated. What else do I do? And I'd actually really enjoyed my internal medicine rotation. It was when... before the new hospital opened, ILH, which was the interim between Charity and UMC.
Yeah.
I had rotated there, and man, it was nuts. You just see so much pathology, amazing patients, amazing people, and like I fell in love with just the internal medicine part of it. So I did a sub internship in internal medicine as well, and when I did that,
it was a game changer.
It was a game. I was like, this is what I enjoy. And the beauty of it was if you do internal medicine, you can go do cardiology, GI, pulmonary critical care, endocrinology, whatever you feel like. It's like it's deferred decision making. Yeah. So that's what I did. That's how I ended up in IM, and I actually enjoyed it. So yeah, that's how I ended up in internal medicine.
So mine is somewhat similar. I did mine by a process of elimination.
Yeah.
So I knew the things I didn't want to do. I really enjoy surgery. I even thought about the idea of doing orthopedic surgery as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, once I did my surgery rotation, and I remember, and I might be ashamed to admit this, but I remember I was doing my surgery rotation, and one of the surgeries we're doing was a vascular surgery. One, it was a 6 hours. It wasn't 13 hours.
Yeah.
It was a 6-hour surgery. And I kid you not, I think it was one of those days that we woke up at 4 a.m. The surgery now was, this one I was on call, so I was there at 6 p.m. So I've been there from 4 to at least 6 p.m. And so I'm in this surgery. And I think, I'm trying to remember if it was a CEA or not, but in any case, I started dozing off, right? Because I was so exhausted. Dozed off and my hand like touched the sterile field. Yo.
Oh, man.
Yo, the surgeon, the look he gave me haunts me to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Haunts me to this day. But that was a clear demarcation for me. Like I can't. This is not for me.
Yeah.
You know,
that's a good.
That's a good.
Yeah.
You know, like this is clearly not for me.
Yeah.
And I always think about the people that have specific passions in medicine, and that day it dawned on me that my passion didn't match up to the expectation.
That's fantastic.
Right. My passion did not match up to the expectation, or my hopes did not match up to expectations. So I was just like, nah, this is not for me.
Yeah.
So kicking down the decision, the easy choice from there was internal medicine. I was like, all right, so many options. Let me just do internal medicine and then figure it out from there. And again, by process of elimination, I knew I didn't want to do rheumatology, GI, blah, blah, blah. But I did really, really like the ICU. I enjoyed my time in the ICU. I don't even think I had like a deep passion for pulmonary. I have for it now. I think post-fellowship or mid-fellowship into attending, the way I appreciate pulmonary now has been tremendous. But, Pulm Crit was itself also by a process of elimination. Then how did you come to Pulm Crit?
So I'm a masochist, apparently. So my very first rotation as an intern, first day intern, they put me on nights in the ICU. So it was me and an upper level resident and a bunch of sick patients because it was a referral center in Nashville.
Oh, Vanderbilt. This is
At
Vanderbilt.
Vandy, yeah.
So you did IM at Vandy.
I did IM at Vandy, and then I did
Gotcha.
my Palm Critical Care at UW in Seattle.
Gotcha.
I was scared, man. Like I've never done the ICU before. Like I've not put in a central line. I've never had to do any of these things, and now it's just me and some upper level overnight with a bunch of sick patients.
Right.
It was amazing. I will never forget. I messed up my first line. I completely messed it up.
Yeah.
We used to have these gloves. These it was like a little bit of a retractable, almost rubber glove, the sterile glove.
Yeah.
And there was this one vascular path, a patient who had difficult access, and they wanted us to put in a central line. And I told my upper level, look, you should do this. And she was like, no, that's junk, Jerry. Put in the central line. You're here to train. I got in on the first stick. I was like, bam. Started to thread the wire and wanted to move my hand away. And I had stuck the needle through my flimsy glove into the patient. And therefore, I had to abort and pull out. Couldn't get that access again. Like that one stick that would have gotten it. I mean, he had a lot of clot. Maybe wouldn't have been able to thread it. Whatever.
Yeah.
But that was the one stick we were able to get in that patient that day.
Oh my goodness.
I felt terrible. I mean, he did fine. He did fine. But but that experience of it,
The thrill.
Really thoroughly enjoyed it. But then I was going through residency and I was like, man, I said no to ortho. Man, those guys make a lot of money. Maybe I'll go do GI. Those guys make a lot of money also.
Yeah.
So I thought GI for a while. Did a little bit of GI research. I don't like the smell of poop. I just don't.
It comes with a job.
Yeah, there's a lot to GI that's not that, but we did a few endoscopies and I was like, man, no, thank you. I'll take sputum all day, every day. So then somewhere along the way in residency, I was like, this ICU thing it's fun, man. I enjoy this. This is who I am. This is what I want to do. It helps that I had just amazing the mentors there were fabulous and they were passionate about critical care. So I think it's a little biased. They get people who want to go into palm critical care from my residency because they have such a strong group of palm critical care folks. Right. So, but I don't regret it at all. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and yeah, that's how I chose.
Nice. So. But you didn't highlight pulmonary yet. So you said critical care.
Did someone say pulmonary? I'm not a pulmonologist. I am a pulmonologist. So here's the thing. Interestingly, I do most of my work as research.
Yeah.
So I do pulmonary research. I enjoy the ICU because you can do something and watch it make a difference. And pulmonary, I struggle with clinics. So this is why I couldn't just do primary internal medicine.
Gotcha.
Is more power to the people who can do it, right? Working with people who have hypertension, changing their medications over time, et cetera, et cetera. Wonderful, wonderful. I struggle with that. I want to see change. So I had this intern who I was with this weekend. We had someone whose sodium was high. He's a dermatology prelim, and he was like, well, his sodium's high, what should we do about this? And I was like, oh yeah, let's, calculate his free water deficit, give him some free water. And it was very simple. It's something dumb. It's very simple. It's not dumb, but it's very simple. And he was like, yo, the sodium came down today. Dr. Z, that's really cool to see happen in real time.
Right.
And this is like one of the most minimum things, you intubate someone who's very sick, but just even... I was reminded of it today because he was so excited by such a small change.
Something that simple.
So critical care is fun because you can make those changes and see them take place. And this was over a day. There's some things you do, minute to minute, hour to hour. Right. So, and then pulmonary. Sorry, clearly I love critical care because I'm telling you that. Pulmonary, I enjoyed in fellowship, but I'm just not a clinic person. I'm going to be starting one soon, TB clinic. If you have TB, come see me. Hopefully you don't. But
Don't get TB.
Don't get TB. But yeah, no, my research isn't TB. But yeah, I enjoy high octane stuff. So yeah, you tell me about your enjoying pulmonary now.
Yeah, so I think it's funny because I whenever I think about it, I remember my my personal statement.
Yeah.
So my personal statement was actually pulmonary heavy. My personal statement for fellowship was pulmonary heavy.
Interesting.
But it applies more now than it did then. So my personal statement essentially spoke about how in the pulmonary clinic, there are very few symptoms that feels more impending, like shortness of breath.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? And when you make a difference to someone that has shortness of breath, it is profound in their life.
Yeah.
With as simple as an inhaler. Like an inhaler, I can't tell, like now, and especially, I think as an attending, I'm appreciating it more. And the closer you get to attendingship, so from as a resident, you're in clinic, but you're really. I went to a community residency, so it was my attendings who were really my mentors that kind of got me into pulmonary critical care. I had no idea I was going to do pulmonary critical care prior to residency. It's not something I even entertained.
Yeah.
But I had tremendous mentors, Dr. Espinoza and Dr. Alabasi. Just fantastic people. They were very passionate. Going back to what you were saying, like one thing I love about medicine is the people that inspire you can change your life, right?
Yeah.
They change your life. And it's not something that you predict. It's not something you expect, but that's how it happened. That's how it's because I had these two that really had a profound effect on me. But in the pulmonary clinic as a resident, you function as a resident, you're functioning more as a data collector, right?
Yeah.
So you go, you listen, you do your thing, you go present. The decision is above your head. And you should know why the decision was made, but really, and of course your attending will ask, what do you think? But you, as a resident, you're responding to what your attending wants to hear.
Yeah.
And that can be different depending on who the attending is.
Yeah, that's very true.
Right?
Yep.
So you know who the attending is. You're like, oh yeah, sure. This is what they want to hear. So this is what the answer is. So you say that. As a fellow, that still applies, but you get a little bit more autonomy. But it's not enough for you. At least it wasn't enough for me to be like, man, to certainly appreciate the benefit that the patient is getting from that decision. As an attending is when that patient now says, doc, man, that changed my life.
Yeah.
And they're telling me, and I made that decision, right? Something as simple as starting them on an inhaler, giving them even giving them some recommendation or teaching them how to use their inhaler properly, like the simplicity of it all.
Yeah, yeah.
But shortness of breath, which is what I tell like anyone that's willing to listen, we're bronchonauts, right? So like shortness of breath is such a profound sense of like you feel like you're drowning, and when it's alleviated, there's a breath of fresh air becomes so much more valuable.
Yeah.
And that is what I'm appreciating now.
Interesting.
And I love it. I love it. Of course, the challenge with that, of course, is if I tie myself to those positives, which I'm now learning now, is you have to accept that there are things
you don't always get them. You don't always get them.
You don't get them. You don't always get them. So I appreciate simple asthmas, simple COPDs, where you give an inhaler and it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
But more importantly for me now, I am more empathetic to people. I think now I'm much more empathetic to people that you can't provide that for.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So people that have really bad fibrotic lung diseases, interstitial lung diseases, that the treatment is going to be a little bit more it's going to take a little bit more time to kind of get them to a place of acceptance that maybe they're not going to go back to who they were.
Yeah.
And that becomes a very different type of medicine for me. But I'm also enjoying that. Like, it becomes much more personal. And I feel like in a pulmonary clinic, you get to know your patients in a really, really cool way. And the questions we ask, like, what kind of pillow do you have?
Yeah.
Like the things that we're asking you, what's your job? No, what's your job before that? And your job before that?
Did you ever do sandblasting?
Did you do sandblasting? Do you have cats, dogs, birds? The way you know your patients, especially in that first initial consult. One of my favorite authors is Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes. I've read every single Sherlock Holmes short story about 100 times.
Yeah.
And in that initial consult visit of a pulmonary visit, oh man.
You feel like Sherlock?
I feel like Sherlock.
All right.
I feel like Dr. House.
That's inspiring, man. You make me almost want to be a pulmonologist.
That's how it is for me. And now I'm appreciating that a lot more, because that decision, when the patient is interacting with me, I feel like that interaction is unhindered by somebody else, right? So like, and obviously it's the way things are. You have to learn.
Yeah.
So it's not to say that I didn't enjoy pulmonary in fellowship. I certainly did.
Yeah.
I think the relationship with the patient is what's different now, and I'm appreciating that relationship a lot more.
That makes sense. Yeah. No. So for me, like, it's not the. It's interesting because you actually it sounds like you enjoy the clinic.
Yeah.
For me, like the subject matter of pulmonary was fun, actually, interestingly. I didn't go into it wanting to do pulm, but the subject matter was fun. So when I see people, for instance, inpatient in the hospital on pulmonary consults, I actually enjoy that. But again, that's high octane because like you're trying to figure out what's going on and change. I think where I struggle is, and I'm intrigued by your love of this, is trying to work with people long term on lifestyle, like smoking, for instance. So that's my struggle, and I know it's a struggle for people because I have close family relatives who smoke, and I've tried and spoken to them and everything else, and like there's things that work, there's things that don't work, and we're learning more and more about what works, but. For me, that was a struggle with being in clinic, similar to when I did a primary clinic, for instance. I just struggled with lifestyle aspects. So how do you deal with that?
That's a good question. I'm learning about that myself now. I think more recently, the way I've started approaching my patient is like when it comes up, I always say, you know what I'm going to tell you. Like I say that up front, right? Once we both know that you smoke, I know you smoke, you know you smoke.
Yeah.
You know what I'm going to tell you. And then I ask them, what am I going to tell you? And so they tell me, I need to quit smoking. I was like, sure, you need to quit smoking. I think everything, and this is almost verbatim what I say, that is the most important thing you can do. And that's the most important thing I want you to get out of this visit.
Yeah.
There are other things that we're going to talk about, but that is the big thing. I am not a judge. I'm a doctor. I'm here to work for you. Work with you. And I think the biggest mental shift I've made is that once I know that my patient smokes, that it's going to take some time to get them, like I just accept it's going to take some time to get them to a point where they feel, where we can get them to quit smoking. And I also ask, do you want to quit? Yeah. And when they say no, I know I just let it be. Next visit, I'll be like, do you want to quit? And they say no. I was like, all right, no problem. Again, you understand that this is the biggest thing that you can make. And I just make it known up front, and that provides me some sort of peace of mind, right? Yeah. And I also don't want to be too paternalistic and too aggressive about the way I give recommendations. I think that's also counter to my personality. But it does give me a peace of mind knowing that I have that open conversation. They know where I stand. I know where they stand in the first 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes of the visit. And I revisit it every time, but I don't make it a pressing issue. I offer them alternatives. If they're interested, if they're not, like just keep it moving. And I do okay with that. It is challenging, of course, because if people actually just took care of themselves, our jobs would be much less like everything. We would have much less everything.
Yeah.
If because I think primary prevention is what's really lacking in a lot of healthcare. And if people focused on that with their own person, without, and the other thing my mom and I were talking about is my mom is a family physician.
Yeah.
And we spoke about this a few years ago, that patients spend less than 1% of their time with us.
Yeah, much less than 1%.
Much less than 1%. The rest is with them. It's on you, right? And to say that I'm going to take that much less than 1% to change your life in such a way that, especially for something that significant, it's a tall task.
Fair enough. So, okay, that makes sense. So it's not, you don't take it personally.
No.
So I struggle. I think I take things personally, and man, I'm failing with this individual. I'm failing. I need to succeed and pass. I need to get this task, which is stop them from smoking, and therefore, like
you're not achieving that.
I'm not achieving that, and therefore, satisfaction is just is much lower for me when I'm in that situation. So, yeah, it's a little bit. It's interesting. I'm glad you don't take things personally. I struggle with it.
Yeah.
So like if I change a medication in the ICU, whatever happens is mostly on me and the patient, depending on how sick they are. But yeah, I get that instant satisfaction of this thing changed, or they're too sick for it to change. So it's I'm a gratification kind of guy.
Yeah.
I enjoy the gratification. So yeah,
it does make me think about how objectively, I understand it, the pairing of pulmonary and critical care. Yeah. I understand it. I understand why it is. But it's two different mindsets.
It's very different mindsets.
Yeah.
So in the end, like elsewhere, like it's the anesthesiologists or anesthetists who are critical care doctors, and they live in the moment. Those guys and gals are the ultimate live in the moment.
Yep.
I give a medication, someone goes to sleep. I give a reversal medication.
They wake up.
Their paralysis is gone. Like that's the minute to minute, hour to hour. So critical care makes sense. It's just the traditional reason was the ventilators, right? Was lung doctors know lung mechanics in the US anyway, so therefore they should be the ones who are potentially intensivists in terms of the ventilator. And so much of critical care is tied in with someone being sick enough to be on the vent,
right?
But it's very different specialties, because I can manage the vent well, but my mind process or my thought process is very little pulmonary when I'm in the ICU.
Right. I agree.
So yeah, you're right. I don't. Yeah,
like you said, I understand why it got paired in the first place. Yeah. It has to be the ventilator. That has to be the tying reason. But the me that is a pulmonologist and the me that's an intensivist, we're very different. We function and practice very differently.
Yeah.
If I went to my pulmonary clinic and thought like an intensivist, my goodness, and vice versa, then nobody would ever like it. Pulmonary is a much more patient in terms of time. Yeah. And critical care is critical in terms of time.
Yeah.
Like, things that, sorry, one of my favorite things about the ICU is when someone rolls into the ICU, you know what you need to do. The vet, something needs to happen now, and just by them presenting, you know what that thing is.
Yeah.
They need to be intubated. They need to be on pressors. You know exactly what the primary issue is. We need to do this right now.
Yeah.
And that decision is dictated by the patient. Everything else becomes waxing lyrically once you settle that patient down.
Yeah.
And that's what the ICU is probably the most comfortable I feel in the hospital. If on the floors, I've said this also, on the floors, the regular medicine wards, I'm just like, what? This place is chaotic. What is going on up here? Like what?
You're dealing with 5 or 6 or 7 different chronic problems.
What is going on?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
In the ICU, there's order.
Yeah.
There's control. Even in that chaos, there's order and control.
Yeah.
Even in the chaos of the critical care unit, there is order and control. And I love that. I absolutely love that. And pulmonary is much more art, right? So
it's a lot of art. It's a lot of it's an art of medicine.
yeah,
type
the
thing.
art of medicine,
Yeah.
you feel it in pulmonary for sure.
And then it's a lot of waiting because,
Yeah.
you'll see someone today, you'll get the CT scan,
Yeah.
you'll send off the serology, the lab work that may get sent to Neverland, some reference hospital in, I don't know, Denver, Colorado, and then not come back to you for a long time. And
Yeah.
then when that comes back, you're like, well, I don't really know. Let's go get a lung biopsy.
Yeah.
Man, it is, it's.
And then you
it's-
talk to your friends that are pulmonologists, and they're like, "Well, I know you think it's this, but really,
Yeah.
honestly, I've seen a case like this."
Yeah, but have you tried steroids?
Have you
though?
tried? It always comes back to steroids. It always comes back to steroids.
So no, it's good. It is, as you said. I guess if you're to come back to your analogy, you're a Sherlock of sorts because
Yeah.
lung medicine isn't. Yeah, it's not always simple.
It's not.
finding it is fun when it's simple asthma or simple COPD because it's
Yeah.
gratifying.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's an adventure trying to figure out what's
Yeah.
going on.
How has it been now? Because you were my attending.
Yeah.
So this is 4 or 5 years now into
4
year
years.
4 into attendingship.
Yeah.
How has that been?
Man, I feel much more comfortable. I really do. As you said, where do you feel most comfortable? When I'm outside of the hospital, people will ask me medical questions and or they'll show me their rashes and stuff like that. And it's not the same. But when someone's critically ill, very, very, very sick. When I started, I told you I started as a night intern, but then we had a lecture the next morning. And a guy, rest in peace, Art Wheeler, he sat us down and he'd give this talk for ICU orientation. And he was like, whenever someone is really sick and things are hitting the fan, I don't know how family friendly this is, I want you to be the calmest person in the room. That's what a critical care doctor is, the calmest person in the room. Because if you're freaking out, you're not really thinking, all right? And you're not thinking objectively. So nowadays, and that stuck with me. He said that. This was my second day of intern year because I'd stayed up overnight. So I was maybe delirious. Maybe he didn't say it exactly like that. But no, it stuck with me. So now when I'm in the hospital, it's fun because people are like, oh, this person's really sick. This is going on. This is going on. And yeah, I'm getting excited and I'm processing the information. But then you take it in and you're calm and you're like, okay, there's patterns. Critical care, as you go on and on, is patterns. And you start to hear the words, you start to see the thing, you look at the labs and you're like, this is this pattern going this way. Every once in a while, there's a zebra. Shout out to the last zebra. But a lot of it is patterns and it's a lot of fun because I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday morning. He and I were sitting next to each other when we were pre-rounding. And I like to play this game where before I even read about what's going on with the patient, I just look at their vital signs and their labs and try to decide what's going on with them before I ever read the story. And it's becoming easier and easier and easier as time goes by. So because there are patterns, you just start to see them. So I'm comfortable. I love it. The first year, if you had asked me this question, because I started, I was off cycle. I did a year abroad. This is abroad. Although it's home now. So I started in November 2019, and then March 2020, COVID. And I was a young attending. And I mean, I had done all the training. I knew all the things. In fact, I was very fresh from the board exam. So I was about as smart as I'm going to be.
Right.
But then COVID was tough. And you start to question yourself. You start to question the things you've learned. It was a difficult time. And I spoke to colleagues, senior colleagues, junior colleagues. Everyone was feeling it because just no matter what you did, some people would.
Just nothing was happening.
Yeah. So that first year, I think was the toughest year in practice that I've only done 4 years, but that was the toughest year in practice. Not only because I was new, like I felt pretty good about my knowledge base. It was more the subject matter and then like COVID coming at the time that it came. So it was like, it was as if I signed up for a war without knowing it. And I was in the trenches within like 4 months of starting my job. But now, I mean, COVID's still a thing, but it's fun now. It's a lot more critical care, a lot of different pathology. It's not the same formula. So yeah, I feel good. 4 years in is good. Hopefully you saw that progression as I was training you as my fellow.
Absolutely.
And my twin in the hospital.
Oh yeah, everybody to this day, I'm sure somebody out there thinks that we're the same person.
Oh man, I'm pretty sure there's a couple of ladies in the hospital who still talk to me as if I've been the sweetest person to them. And I'm like, man, the sweetest person is Ugo. You probably had a very good interaction with him. But everyone just thinks, yeah, it's especially when like your hair was like mine also, people were just like, Dr. Ugo. No, actually, I'm Dr. Zifodya. But
COVID was bizarre. I think we cover in fellowship, we cover the VA, UMC, and Tulane.
Yeah.
The vast majority of my COVID experience was UMC, and because of second and third year, was UMC and the VA, primarily in the VA. And the VA is a beautiful hospital.
Yeah.
Right? So is UMC. COVID was bizarre because you could, the weather here was phenomenal.
Yeah.
When COVID was rocking the world.
Yep.
You could stand. They have these beautiful windows at the VA where you could just stand outside and look outside, and the sun was out. It was a beautiful days, cloudless skies, no rain, nobody in the streets, and behind you is a full bed of critical care patients in COVID, intubated. All of them were essentially the same. If they're not the same, they're about to become that. And the way I thought about COVID, going back to how, the simple asthma and the simple COPD, what COVID made me appreciate is a simple DKA.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So now I don't take DKAs for granted. I don't take, when someone comes in for COPD exacerbation, heart failure exacerbation, where the answer is, steroids, antibiotics, time, or Lasix and time, or insulin and time. With COVID, it was just time. There was time to expiration essentially. Yeah. And that made, it's just like it felt hopeless. There would be weeks you'd be in rotation and you're just like, what am I even doing here?
Yeah. It did feel hopeless, man. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I think a lot of us have PTSD from that time, and not very processed PTSD. Yeah. I was asked to give a talk to my fellowship during the height of COVID because like Seattle got the first few cases, but then they weren't hit as hard. And then New Orleans was just in the thick of things, and they were like, hey man, give us a talk on COVID. There was a guy in New York who was giving a talk on COVID in New York, and then me in New Orleans when things were bad. And then I started, they told me, talk about anything you want to talk about. This was like for just our fellowship grand rounds. And I started to talk about the stages of grief for COVID. That's what my PowerPoint slide is. I'm thinking of going back to it again someday. But it was the stages of grief. And I was just like, I was in mourning for a long time because, you remember these people. And there was this one lady, man, she had beautiful, long dreadlocks, amazing lady. She's telling me about, her life, her family, getting sicker and needed to be intubated. And it was the first wave. And if you were getting intubated in the first wave, like...
We knew what that meant.
You were most likely going to die, unfortunately. That was, in my experience, unfortunately. So I remember her, like, I was the last person who heard her voice before we intubated her. So I was the last person who heard her voice.
Period.
And she was just this, I feel like she had a lot of life in her. And I watched that just go,
Right.
And that one haunts me. There's another one. She was, There's a few that haunt me. And I think a lot of us have these stories, and we just don't. We haven't processed them and haven't spoken about them. And COVID was rough, man. It like the height of it in this city was very difficult.
And it's speaking about not processing that stuff. It's because it kind of just went away. Not went away, but like the way society just kind of moved on.
Yeah. They have.
And we also kind of, by virtue of the way our work is, like, patients don't wait for you to recover.
Yeah,
like,
you just have to keep going. You just have to keep going.
Yeah, there's the people to see. You just gotta keep going.
Yeah.
COVID was wild.
Yeah.
The pandemic was wild.
Yeah. You and I'll sorry to cut you off. You were talking about being in the VA and looking down. So my wife and I chose to live in the quarter for the first 6 months while looking for a house when we came back to New Orleans. We lived in the quarter proper, and the goal was like, we'll go to restaurants and we'll walk on the on the riverfront, and we'll go to like the parks that are close by. I ended up doing that because I sent my wife and kids away, but I would do that and there was no one in the quarter. I know the French Quarter really, really well now because I could walk without bumping into anyone, and I just would go up and down the roads. That was my my exercise, and just listen to music or podcasts.
And anyone that knows New Orleans French Quarter, for it to be like that is literally the definition of a ghost town.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And it was shocking because if you go down now, any time of day, there's a lot of people there at 3 a.m. And there was no one. I would walk, be Saturday, 6 p.m., walking to the riverfront just to go get a walk, and there was no one. So it was an odd time. It was eerie. But let's move on. I'll process my PTSD sometime.
At another time.
Yeah.
Global health.
Yeah, man.
What is that? I know I think that was the first thing anyone ever told me about you.
Yeah.
Was, oh man, he's the global health guy.
The global
health guy.
Oh man, I wish I could just be labeled that and just be that.
Yeah.
So global health is and it's interesting. It's looking at the world as not just America, but looking more at it as whatever's going on in Kenya and Zimbabwe can affect what's going on in the US. Mm-hmm. And so there's people who work in these lower resourced areas and are working in the field of global health now. There's a shift away from, people used to do these medical missions where you you're there for a month, you work on something and then you leave. And there's no thoughts on the how sustainable what you left was or what you did or whatever. So if you go leave a bunch of clean cooking stoves that need a particular fuel, have you provided people with the fuel that they're going to need long term, or are they going to use them for a month and then put them up on their shelves? I'm using a real case. So now it's thinking about medicine in lower resourced areas in a practical standpoint. For me, being from Zim, I always wanted to go home and work home or figure out some way very quickly through training. I never thought I was going to do research, but I went to a research-heavy residency, then fellowship, and I realized, I can make a big difference from a research standpoint, bigger than my going and trying to see 20 patients a day when I go to Zim. Maybe I can actually help shape policy on tuberculosis diagnostics or whatever the case may be, and that makes a big difference. So I do research now, I do some population stuff, some TB diagnostic stuff, but then I fell in love with, I never thought I'd be a TB doctor. I didn't want to be stereotypical and be like, the Zimbabwean guy who studies HIV and TB. That's so stereotypical.
Right.
I fell into it. My mentor, that's what she was doing, and then really fell in love with this field called post-tuberculosis lung disease, where we're realizing more and more that people who survive TB have abnormal lung function, have chronic symptoms, and they're just sent out into the world. You're cured, but you're short of breath, you're coughing, you can't even walk, a kilometer without feeling short of breath. So that's the field that I'm studying, and is how does this come about, and what are ways that we can potentially treat it for the long term. That's my career in global health. But then working within the structure of, we have a partnership with the Kenyan Medical Research Institute. It's a long-term partnership. We're building infrastructure. I've trained a lot of people there on how to do lung function testing. Some of them have gone on to other jobs, but they have that skill set now.
Right.
So hoping you make a bigger difference in a sustainable fashion.
Right.
So yeah, that's a very long answer to what is global health.
A very long but great answer. I think that essentially covers exactly what I was hoping to hear. But what I'm hearing is essentially a way to make healthcare abroad not just a fad, but much more practical and much more sustainable.
Yeah. Within the limits of what's there, which
right.
I think,
Right.
And it's interesting, man. Back to COVID. I interviewed for internal medicine at this relatively prestigious place once upon a time, and I interviewed with this one guy, and he asked me what I wanted to do, and I told him global health. Then he's like, but why? And I was like, the world is getting smaller, people travel, and like it's no longer Zimbabwe health, it's no longer America health, it's like just health.
Right. And
things can move from place to place. And he's like, he was like, yeah, but why would you want to do it? And then I reshaped my answer because I was like, look, man, what I'm trying to say is it doesn't matter if I'm working in Zim or in Louisiana, and the interview was not in Louisiana. Wherever you are, like what's shaping the health there can affect the health here.
Right.
And he seemed incredulous. And so, we finished the interview. It was one of my least favorite interviews. And we're walking away. He's walking me back and he's like, I was like, you asked me about global health a few times. What are your thoughts on it? He's like, don't kid yourself that you're making a difference, is what he said.
Wow.
That stuck with me. I didn't rank that school. I did not want to go there because
so this was the interview.
This was the interview day. This guy was telling me this on the interview day. He was like, don't kid yourself. You're making a difference with global health. And then COVID since happened. And as we now know, China health is America health. America health is wherever in Europe. Europe health is South Africa, Botswana.
Right,
so it didn't matter where you were. And some of the best evidence we have was not from these great United States. It was like from England using dexamethasone, for instance. So, and some of the sequencing for the different variants was out of South Africa, out of Botswana.
Right.
Global health is, I guess it's a growing entity. I can't say I'm proud that COVID happened, but I think it highlighted the importance of it.
Why TB, right? So how is TB that prevalent in Zim? Or is it you mentioned how that stereotypical HIV TB, why TB?
Yeah, man. So when I started to do pulmonary, when I did critical care, I wanted to do global health critical care because I was like, I want to do the critical care part of global health, go research critical care. So I actually went to my fellowship to UW to go work with some guy who does global health critical care. While I was there, I met my mentor now, who's been my mentor for 7 years. And she was like, well, we did this mentoring day, and she was like, well, I work in Africa. You could go do critical care research, but you're going to be working in Southeast Asia. If you want to work in Africa, you could come and work with me. I've got a mentee who's worked in Kenya. That's why Kenya also, not Zimbabwe, is because my fellowship already had infrastructure there, and they've been working there for more than 10 years. I was like, okay, cool. What are you doing? And she was like, HIV. I was like, man, I've been trying to avoid HIV as a subject because people are like, oh, the Zimbabwean guy just wants to work in it. That's stereotypical. I was like, okay, fine, let's do it. So I went to go do this project in HIV. It was half people living with HIV, half HIV negative individuals. We enrolled them, tried to look at what were the factors associated with their lung disease. And what was most associated in this rural, it's the third biggest city in Kenya, semi-rural community was TB, was the biggest determinant. Prior TB was most associated with lung disease in this cohort of individuals.
Wow.
And so, for me, that was eye-opening. I was like, oh, wow. And then I started reading more, found out there's this whole world of post-tuberculosis lung disease. It's a burgeoning world. It's just started growing. And I was like, man, I want to study this. It's a field that's hot. It's a field that's growing. So all of a sudden now, not only am I HIV researcher, I'm a TB researcher, which all goes hand in hand. But I mean, those are the problems that are important. So that's what I'm working on.
Right.
But if you had asked me, I would have been doing, lactated ringers and normal saline trials in Zambia or something, or Zim. But that's how I ended up where I am. Now been working in Kenya since 2018, so that's five years
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was wanted to ask you. I don't think we ever got the chance to talk about it much but I knew that global health was something that was really passionate, something you're really passionate about. But I don't think we ever got the chance to talk about it, at least not to this degree.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to hear you talk about it. Like that.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, yeah, it is. It's something that is close to heart. I don't know how it is for you. Like for me, right? I've been very fortunate. My parents, like, and people will say this, and you roll your eyes, but my parents grew up in the village in Zim, like the village in Zimbabwe, right? And my dad had a leg up because his brothers were older and they educated him somewhat, but he also studied a lot and got a good job. My mom studied a lot. She had some elder siblings. She became a teacher it was still colonial times. We were still a British colony. So if you were smart and black, right, you were a teacher. So she became a teacher. And the two of them like rose out of poverty into a very good middle-class life and then sent us to incredibly good schools back home. And from that, me and my siblings have been able to step on their shoulders and come a little bit further up. But relatives, first degree relatives, not looking away further 5, 6, 7 degrees removed, may not have had the opportunities that I had just because my parents had a couple of legs up and then gave us that leg up. So I'm very aware of that in my daily life. I do. I like nicely. I think we've spoken about this before, but then I'm also very aware of who I am. So whenever I write a personal statement or write a letter or talk about who I am, I always started with Zimbabwean saying, which is Ziva Kwawakabva, which is always remember where you came from. And 2 generations removed, I'm from the village in Zimbabwe. Very proud of that, actually. So that's another reason I've always strived I want to go back and do global health. Eventually, I'm going to make it into Zim and be doing my global health there as well. Maybe form a giant cohort with Kenya. That'll be in the works. But that's why I do what I do.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Thank you so much. This has been awesome. I can't wait. We have a lot more that we could talk about for sure.
Oh man, Liverpool.
Liverpool for sure. You'll never walk alone.
You'll never walk alone. Top of the league. Stop the count.
Can something? It's funny. The last time Liverpool won the league, again going back to COVID.
Yeah.
So it feels like I want Liverpool to win it.
Yeah.
Like because it's not an asterisk season, but it feels asterisk-y. Especially how good we were. We were so good. I mean, we were smoking the league.
Yeah.
We won by like 15 points or something like that. We won the league almost earlier than anyone else had ever won it before. We need to win it.
But you see that little voice in the back of your head is all your friends who support Manchester United, who support Chelsea, who support Arsenal, who've told you that it's an asterisk season.
I know.
It was not.
It was not.
We won the league.
It's not. We won it. Fair and square.
Fair and square. And it was
square.
Brilliant. No, I would love to win it again.
Yeah.
So
top of the league.
Top of the league. Maybe we'll get together after the season's over and then do just a celebratory episode. For,
I know. We'll dedicate an entire episode about what it's like to be a Liverpool fan.
Yeah, and there's actually a lot more to talk about. But we should do that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Cheers, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir.
All right.
How'd we do? Hey guys, thank you for watching this episode of The Last Zebra. We have new episodes everywhere you listen to your podcast on Monday mornings, and videos of the podcast are available on YouTube on Tuesday mornings. Please like, subscribe, comment, and engage with our active listeners. Thank you, and looking forward to seeing you on the next one.